That's true.
Okay.
Well, the wine business has been good, huh?
Well, the retail business has been good.
Dale
That's
sent
cool.
that before.
Percent
like
I'll send it to you when the meeting starts. I'll get in my email and send it to you. I have it written down as well.
What time is it? Yours is
Mine
the same
says
time all day long.
6:58 is what my
That's
phone
I thought
says.
I thought I had 5 minutes.
Actually, I was gonna.
Sorry.
We can give you 5 minutes.
Yeah, no, I don't need it, I would just give it time.
All right.
Is this all?
Hey, Tim, are
Yeah.
those fishing rods on your wall behind you? Tim, are those fishing rods? Yeah. Okay,
Fly rods.
fly rods.
Yeah.
This,
Yes.
something to read?
Yep. Fun reading, light reading.
Give me one moment and I'll start recording. Just give me a second.
Okay.
Need this one?
I don't think so. I think it's already going.
Talking about pigs.
Oh, yes, that was definitely all recorded.
That's the problem with the RTA, not me. And Cleveland, like that was a common occurrence.
I hope you invited the driver, the RTA driver.
Christy, are we ready?
I will press record now.
Okay. It is 7 o'clock and I call this meeting to order. It is Monday, June 22nd, and this is a regular meeting of the Sugar and Falls Village Council. Our first order of business will be to rise and do the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
Allegiance to the flag,
United
of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
DiBernardo,
Here.
Evans,
Here.
Krug,
Here.
Newell,
Here.
Rocky,
Here,
Rogoff,
Here.
Mivel.
Here.
Before we go on to the minutes, I just want to clarify that last week my voice was a little muffled for the recording, so I have been asked not to wear my mask when I'm doing a lot of talking. So I apologize for breaking our pandemic protocols, but we need to keep the record clear. So with that, did everyone receive the minutes for both June 3rd and June 8th? Any changes or adjustments?
I didn't see any.
Okay. So can I please have a motion to approve the minutes for Monday, June 3rd?
So moved.
Motion by Newell, second by Rogoff. Oh, do we have a second? Sorry.
Second.
Okay. Motion by Newell, second by DiBernardo. Roll call, please.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Krug,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
aye,
Rogoff,
Aye.
Mivel.
Aye.
And can I please have a motion to approve the minutes from June 8th?
so moved.
And second, please.
Second.
Motion by Rocky, second by DiBernardo. Roll call, please.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Krug,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye,
Rogoff,
Aye.
Mivel.
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Report of the mayor.
I have nothing to report tonight.
Report of the finance director.
I have no report tonight, Madam President.
And then Mr. Markowitz.
Thank you. I do have a report. First item we have tonight is ordinance number 2020-23, an ordinance to establish curfew proclamation provisions and creating council review of curfews proclaimed by the mayor and declaring an emergency.
Okay, this is the second reading. We had said at the beginning this would definitely stay on for 3 readings, or this would stay on for at least 3 readings. Any conversation on this tonight, or do you want to go on to?
Yeah, I think I'd like just a quick review of the ins and outs, if you don't mind. If I don't know what's to lead that or can lead that, or just the stipulations of what we're going to be voting on.
I defer completely to the law director. I defer completely to the law director, because this is not something I requested, something the law director suggested to limit our liability in the very unlikely event that Amy would declare this. And about the only way that I could see it is a tornado wiped out a neighborhood to prevent looting. But beyond that, I have no comment, so I'll defer to the law director.
I'm just like to say, I'm still uncertain if we need this, since it was my understanding from the last discussion that the power already exists with the mayor to create a
It
curfew.
does.
Right.
What I've been told it does, and the law director just recommended this. It's nothing that I have requested.
Sure.
But it also, I mean, on one aspect of this, like the power already exists for the law, for the mayor to put in a curfew, but this also grants council the ability to repeal a curfew if they would, you know, see it unfit. So it is kind of, we're passing an ordinance that's affirming the power of the mayor to do this, but we're also adding the ability for council to overturn it if they think it's an abuse of power or not necessary or for any, you know, unforeseen circumstances.
I have a question. I understood it that the mayor can do this for minors, teenagers, and that we don't have one for adults. Is that
Clear
That is
if it applies to that.
That's
is that correct, Mr. Law Director?
Yes,
And this is just to make it uniform for all ages primarily?
yes.
No, that's not, he can establish a curfew for adults, it's just not a written law,
Oh,
correct?
is that right? Okay.
There is a written curfew for minors on the books,
Right, I thought that's what he meant. We've had
but
one
a
on,
curfew can be established for anyone, right?
And the only way for us to overturn, for council to overturn that decision at this particular moment would be to
Remove the mayor.
remove the mayor, and then the council president would take over.
Well, we could also censure him. We could
Right.
publicly disagree. I mean, there's other, to just kick him out.
I mean, I can only envision anybody enacting this in the most extreme circumstance. And the only ones that I could think of would be a tornado taking out a neighborhood, or I suppose a major fire wiping out the downtown district.
Major incident, you know, right?
I just can't imagine any other person, you know, doing it. So I think the likelihood of ever using this is about the same as winning the lottery. So it's again, it's nothing that I've requested. It's just the law director recommended it in the unlikely event that we ever would need to use it, it would reduce our liability. So I totally defer to him.
well, the other
I'm
thing, the
inclined to be in favor of this. I didn't mean to step on you, Mr. Law Director. For the reasons that Councilman Rocky mentioned, and I think it just kind of cleans up everything. I like the idea of having clean legislation, and and it's good for us all to have this conversation and kind of just think about the consequences. So that's just my 2 cents.
Dale, can you finish your thought?
if you look at section 3 of the ordinance, it has some language that helps the police department so that they know there's legislation on the books. It says if the mayor declares a curfew, they have the right to stop people who are violating the curfew. And it's something I think is helpful to them. Can they do that even if we don't pass this? Sure. But I like Councilman Rocky said about you having review powers, I think it would be helpful to the police to know that there is an ordinance that'll be on the books permanently that would say, okay, section so-and-so allows us to stop you because the mayor declared a curfew. We have a procedure how it's done. He's done it and you're in violation. And so I think it makes their job easier if they can say, well, this isn't just some common law right of the mayor to issue the curfew or based on some charter, it's based on this code section. And they can cite somebody into municipal court if they violate this ordinance as well.
I guess my only, I guess fear is, it's not even fear, is that I don't really see that we have a problem, and I know I don't have a crystal ball, and none of us do, we can't see the tornado coming or the fire wiping out the downtown, but it just seems like we don't have a problem. So why are we creating some solution to a problem that isn't there?
I agree.
And if someone's breaking a law or we have, there's a backstop to that, we have to be arrested.
Again, the only incident that I could see anybody legitimately using this is if a tornado came through and wiped out a whole neighborhood, where you just would want to shut down that neighborhood to anybody entering it. But that's the only event. And, being in a valley, I mean, it's not impossible, but I think it's unlikely in the extreme that we would have something like that occur. But that's about the only legitimate use of this that I could see. Again, another one would be a fire wiping out the big part of downtown. But again, I think that's unlikely in the extreme.
I mean, there are some other, less pleasant ones to think about, active shooter incidents or mass casualty incidents where we need to keep people out of specific areas. I mean, there are other, there are other.
But I think in those events, Rocky, everybody would agree it was a reasonable exercise.
Right.
I'm not arguing for this.
But in that instance, it's protecting us from the lawsuit that will inevitably come out of it.
I mean, in today's society, the thing litigious as it is, you gotta practice defense in every aspect. Because, it could easily cost you $50,000 to settle a frivolous lawsuit because it's cheaper than fighting.
Yes.
Is anybody at all concerned about that? I'm sorry, I really want to say it, but optics of doing something like this right now? I don't want to be that guy who sounds along, but it's going to come up. So
I think,
there's a village, shutting down or putting more stipulations in place for people that just want to be out, or you know what I mean.
So this could get activist attention, and we could be drawing in some unsavory type of comments.
Yes.
It did come up in Barbara's column last week, so.
I'm worried about the reputation.
The timing of it is a little off.
Oh, it's on reading.
Yeah, I understand, but also I think that we need to show some integrity and some, I guess, not a better word, backbone, that we're not going to be held hostage of what could happen because of a certain particular reaction. I think it's legitimate to consider this on the merits of it is, and have the optics kind of be less of a category for basing our decision.
Yeah, I'm just saying, it's out there.
I agree.
I'm not saying I think one way or the other about it. I think it will be spoken about. I'm worried about that.
Well, I recommend we keep it on readings, because I think these discussions are good.
Yeah.
And
I would want to give the public the most opportunity we can for them to come in and say something about it.
It doesn't even have to be passed on third reading.
Right.
Just leave it.
It can be
It can be just left.
held in abeyance for a while.
I'd like to make one editorial comment. Paragraph 4, second line, the curfew is no longer required. It's written out as no longer required.
Wow.
That's in section 4.
Yeah, section 4, second line.
Oh, right, I see that, yeah. Okay, I can fix that.
Put together is no longer.
Okay, anything else on this one? Okay, Mr. Markowitz, next item.
Okay, let me pull back my agenda again.
Mr. Markowitz, while you are pulling up your agenda, I want to remind the council members to speak up. As a Zoom member, it's a little bit faded, so if we could project your voice as best possible, it would be helpful.
Thanks, Christy, we will do that.
Okay, thank you. Next item is resolution number 2020-25. A resolution affirming funds received from the Coronavirus Relief Fund will be expended only to cover costs to the village consistent with the requirements of Section 5001 of the Coronavirus Aid Relief and Economic Security Act as described in 42 USC 801 parens D parens and any applicable regulations as is necessary pursuant to HB 481 before receiving said funds and declaring an emergency. If you'll recall, I sent you a revised version based on some recodification that occurred by Congress that changed the section number in that section 42 USC 801. Other than that, it's essentially the same. This resolution is required to be passed in order for us to get the CARES funds that is funneled from the federal government to the state to the county, and the county will pay it to us. It's based on an allocation formula using the local government fund from last year. And Dave is prepared to submit that to the county auditor and the Office of Budget and Management as soon as we get this passed. We hope you can pass it tonight because the funds should be able to issue very shortly.
So I first need, before we go any farther, I first want to take a motion to amend ordinance 2020-25 as submitted earlier by Mr. Markowitz, which is what he just described as clarifying some of the code sections.
So moved.
Motion by DiBernardo, second by Newell. Roll call, please.
Evans,
Evans.
Me? Aye.
Group,
He called for Jim. He said Evans.
Aye.
Group,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyval,
Aye.
DiBernardo.
Aye.
So I have a question. Is this considered a second reading or is this the first reading of the amendment? And do we need to do 3 readings because it involves finances?
Well, we're not spending money, so we don't have to
Okay.
do 3 readings. And it's on second reading as amended.
Theoretically, we may be able to get this money by the end of the week.
Awesome.
If we pass this.
And if you,
The state auditor is going to disperse the money to the county tomorrow, and Dave will get our paperwork in presumably tomorrow. So presumably by the end of the week or early next week, we should get the money.
and our estimated costs at this point for the COVID response are around about $90,000. So it's a significant amount of money.
Sure. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
All right,
motion
so
to
make it-
suspend?
Well, no, he said we don't need to because we're not spending money. It's the second reading of a resolution, but it only needs 1
Still an
reading.
emergency, isn't it?
Resolutions don't normally require any suspension unless it's
Emergencies
about
will
sus-
require 3 readings.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
Okay, so I have a motion to adopt by DiBernardo, second by Newell. Roll call, please.
Group,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyval,
Aye.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Evans.
Aye.
Thank you.
Markowitz, next item.
Resolution number 2020-26, a resolution adopting the Chagrin Falls alternative tax budget for fiscal year 2021 and declaring an emergency.
This is by far one of my favorite pieces of annual legislation that we do here in Village Council. So what this does is this is a form we fill out and we send to the county every year that tells them what our tax rate is, so that they will then give us our property tax dollars. And if we don't fill this out and send it, they will not give us our property tax dollars, as one of our neighbors found out a couple of years ago when they forgot to submit the form. So this will give us 8.5 mils on the property tax, which is estimated to be just over $2 million.
For the life of me, every year I've been on council, I've wondered why in the world we have to do this. And the answer is
That's why.
Because,
Get the money.
so any questions on this? My favorite piece of legislation?
Motion to adopt.
Okay,
We got to suspend, it's an ordinance.
because it's about, but no.
No, it's not an ordinance, it's a resolution.
JR, do
I'm
we
sorry.
need to suspend the rules?
No, it's a resolution, I'm sorry.
No.
Okay,
Thank you.
You know,
I have a motion by
I
Evans.
would suspend the rules anyhow so that nobody ever can argue over it, but in my opinion, we don't need to suspend the rules. But because it's the tax budget, somebody could say, well, This is authorizing you to spend whatever's in the approved
In an
budget.
abundance of caution, we
Yeah.
have a motion to suspend the rules. Motion by Evans, second by Wyville. Roll call, please.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyval,
Aye.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Grube.
Aye. And do we have a
Motion
motion?
to adopt.
Okay.
Second.
Motion to adopt by Evans, second by Newell. Roll call, please.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Wyval,
Aye.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Grube,
Aye.
Newell.
Aye.
Okay. Next item is ordinance number 2020-27. An ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into a competitive retail electric service contract with Nextera Energy Services Ohio LLC and declaring an emergency. And if you saw Rob's email today, we now have the rate set a little bit
Yeah.
lower than what we thought it was going to be.
So Mr. Newell, can you introduce this for us?
Yes, this is a buying group put together by NOPEC for municipalities to purchase electricity for the wastewater treatment plants. And the rates are very good. One of the things that's a given is we have to use electricity and buy it somewhere. And this outfit's done a pretty good job and given us some very good rates. And it's a 3-year contract, and right now with our current rates, this would be about a $20,000 a year saving, or 60,000 year savings over 3 years. It is an ordinance, and it requires 3 readings unless suspended, and it is an emergency. And I think it's important that we get this passed tonight, so we.
Our existing contract expires July 1.
Yeah, July 1, so we need to move forward on this.
So I have a question. We are preparing to do some work at the wastewater plant that's going to change the turbines. Is that my right word?
Energy consumption.
The energy consumption. And there is a clause in here that says, it's page 2. It's the material change in usage. Are we concerned about dropping below 25% less than we're currently using once we put the new engines
I don't
in?
think so. We're going to use more electricity on the UV sterilization than what's in. So
Any reductions are probably going to be offset by the UV system,
correct.
because I don't want to pay them fees either.
No. I don't anticipate anything. Matter of fact, our kilowatt hours will probably go up a little bit, but there will be offsetting savings in the lack of need to use chlorine.
Okay.
So we will save those chemical savings. So we're going to come out way ahead on this. I think the real savings will be more than $60,000.
Okay, I'd be curious to hear if we can
Yeah.
capture that in a couple of years.
Just if you're curious, you may recall a year ago, January, the booster station pump for the
Yeah.
water, not the
Right.
wastewater, the water system burned out, and it was the voyage of the dam. But we eventually got it replaced early this year, late last year, with a new energy saving pump, and we were spending about $18,000 a year in electricity on the old pump. And last month, I just checked the last month, we had only used, I think it was, Rob, you remember what the amount was? It was like
roughly about $150
$150
instead of $1,100.
a month. So
Wait, we went,
we
Wait.
went from $1,500 a month to
oh,
$150 a month.
oh, okay.
Wow.
But that's still really
Yeah.
phenomenal.
That's
It's the
insane.
right direction.
Well, the only way you could regulate the flow to the reservoir, the pump had 2 speeds. The old pump had 2 speeds, on or off. And if you wanted to throttle, the pump was pumping full pressure against a partially closed valve.
Oh,
And
wow.
so just wasting power. The new motor
Oh,
just
that's
slows
awesome.
down.
No,
So-
electric motors get less efficient the older they get. The more they get used, the more power they need.
Okay.
Correct. So, and that's also, Rocky, what I think Aaron was referring to, as we move into phase 2 of the wastewater treatment plant, which, by the way, we want to start the next year, and this is only a 3-year contract. So most of the power will have been used long before we do that. We've got to do an analysis. Tim can get into the details of that on when we get there. Is it better to keep the old motors that run virtually forever? Or is it better to upgrade to the newer, more fuel efficient motors and have a higher maintenance cost?
And that we will say for another day.
Yeah.
So anything else on the contract that's before us? Okay,
I'd like to make a motion to suspend the rules for 3 readings.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Newell, second by Evans. Roll call, please.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Weigel,
Aye.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Rube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye. Motion to pass resolution 2027.
Second.
I have a motion by Newell, second by Rocky. Roll call, please.
Weigel,
Aye.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Rube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff.
Aye. Okay, thank you, guys.
Next one is, oh, sorry.
It's okay, next one, please.
Ordinance number 2020-28, an ordinance amending chapter 951 of the codified ordinances, amending section 951.01 of the codified ordinances, and adding regulations regarding overnight usage of public property and declaring an emergency.
Okay, Mrs. Rogoff.
So right now, we have an ordinance just for Riverside Park closing time and reopening in the morning, except that signs need to be posted to enforce that rule, and we don't have signs posted.
No, we have posted signs. Signs have been posted, but they
Right.
were not last week.
They weren't. Now they are
Yeah.
today, but they weren't. And we had a couple of gentlemen who decided to camp overnight in the park. So I think they spent the whole night there. Is that right? And we didn't throw them out.
Speculated, yeah.
Yeah, but we got the signs up, so now we can enforce the rule. But this ordinance actually expands that to cover all of our parks, including all of them, any village-owned property parks. This, where the village hall is, the treatment plant, any village-owned property except for streets and sidewalks. It doesn't cover that.
Now, we've always allowed the Cub Scouts to.
Well, there's a place for an exception in it.
Not in, well, it's not written in here.
It's a
Yeah, I read, look
There's-
for it.
Well,
retaining a permit.
Because they always come in and ask, and we always grant them permission.
Right.
to
Yeah.
Camp overnight.
well, yeah, I mean, I actually, I don't know who wrote the law director wrote this,
Yes.
I guess.
Yes.
And I didn't really see it until, I guess, Friday, so, there's,
We're just gonna leave it on reading.
we're gonna leave it on readings. There's a couple, there's a couple things that I want to change, so I don't know if we should talk about that
I have
now.
some thoughts too. Do you mind if we go through a couple of those thoughts, just
No,
so
go
that
ahead.
if we want to make an actual change, we can have Dale draft
We'd like
that.
to get the sign posted. It is our
The
intent
signs
to
are
allow
posted.
the Cub Scouts.
Right.
Right,
Well, let's
But-
see how many changes we're talking about.
right. Well, I want to make sure that that is clear. The main, let's see where it is. The main thing that concerns me is section D and the items listed under that, that permit the administrative officer the discretion to allow certain activities under those kinds of rules. And generally, we don't, the administrative officer and the other employees don't have discretion to do those kinds of things and approve something like that. So if we want to approve those kinds of activities, I think that it should be the mayor who does the approving of that on a limited basis. I think there's some other place in here where the mayor has discretion to do something. And, that's fine. At least it's okay with me because the mayor's an elected official. And if somebody doesn't like, there's recourse against them, they can come and argue with them. But a village employee is not, just typically shouldn't have discretion to do those kinds of things. Yeah.
One of my concerns.
But I mean, that's one of the, and I'll make some changes myself and give them to the law director so that we get them back. And then Jan, to your question, I would make sure that that's stated as a discretionary thing for the mayor.
The
For
campaign.
the Cubs.
We can't say it's discretionary.
Hold on, pause. Dale, go first.
Okay, sorry. If it's discretionary, then the courts have been throwing those out. You have to have very specific standards, and it can't be one of these things where you exercise a lot of judgment. The language in the ordinance came exactly word for word from a Supreme Court of Ohio case that upheld that kind of legislation in the city of Cleveland. And so that's why we used the 5 criteria that's in section 2D. I don't have a problem if you want to make it the mayor versus the CAO. It doesn't really matter. In Cleveland, it was done by I think it was director of parks or something like that. But if you want it to be the mayor, I don't have a problem with that. It's just keep in mind that he can't exercise discretion.
Right. My thought would be we would allow camping in
Other parks.
No, I wouldn't say parks. I would say camping. Thank you. Camping would be permitted by request with a group who's been able to provide us insurance, will provide themselves a porta potty, and they can only do it once a year, which is pretty limited in scope, and it keeps the focus on the fact that these are public parks or public spaces. And we want to use the word public property because the JCs had an issue a year ago when Bainbridge would no longer allow the carnival workers to camp on private property in Bainbridge. And so they were actually, they used some public land in the village. So by keeping it the word public property, we can allow the JCs the space for their workers during Blossom to camp. And then we can still allow events like the Boy Scouts. And I would ban on number D5, I would say no overnight camping or sleeping would be allowed in Riverside, Triangle Park, Bell, Franklin.
So you want to add all the, okay.
Parks in the downtown, in the commercial.
Yeah,
business
so we're
district.
gonna not allow it ever in the downtown. Or yes, and then I said in conservation areas. So that would be Whitesburg, and then eventually if we receive donated land on Grove Hill, that would include that. So really it pushes it to.
And that Franklin Park.
Yeah, I have Franklin on there.
Do we really need to list them all?
Yeah, can we just say
By
only
list-
allowed in one park?
By listing what's not allowed, we make it, I mean, Dale, correct me if I'm wrong, but my sense is that if we list exactly where it's not allowed, then we've drawn a clear thing, but maybe it doesn't matter.
I think you can go either way. You could just say it's only allowed in this specific place. And
In
no
Riverside.
other. Because what'll happen is as you get more land, then you got to go amend the ordinance
Sure,
and
right.
put that in there.
Okay.
And it's,
Because they've been housed, they've been housed at the service station near the cemetery before. So it's like, we really want to start saying that those are areas that because that may change as we expand the cemetery to take over that space, and that will no longer, then we have to come back and change it. So I think we can at least reasonably agree we're not going to have people camping in Triangle Park and Riverside and Bell and Franklin and the basics. And then
one of my concerns to this is the 11 p.m. closing time of the park. That causes some kind of, I have some conflicts with that because that 11 p.m. closing, especially when it's is in discussion with Blossom time, the park closes at 11.
they actually get a waiver every year so that they can have the park open later.
Okay, but is that going to interfere with this? How is that going to act with this ordinance?
Well, D allows for a permit to stay beyond 11,
Okay.
but this would then say they can stay beyond 11, but they can't camp there. That's all it's saying.
It feels like go home at 3 and come back at 9.
But you went home for a little bit.
To the council president's comment, people that work Blossom time do camp out in other parts of the village.
Right, I understand that.
Okay, so that will all be part of the permitting for that.
Right, I understood that. I just wanted to make sure in terms of, Riverside, even like what the film festival did last year, that had to take them past 11 to get it all cleaned up and get out of there. Like it takes some time.
Similar problem with art department.
Okay, do you have other editorial comments?
Those are my editorial comments, and we would need to adjust the language a little bit in B, but, because
Yeah,
it
just
says,
send-
no overnight camping or sleeping shall be permitted at any public property. And
So
no,
I-
yeah, we need to leave it
Yeah.
on read. Could I bring back a revision option that would include my thoughts?
Right.
Okay.
Is that a,
So Nancy and Aaron, just make edits on the Word document and get it back to me, and then we'll fix it up again after the next meeting.
Sounds good. Thank you, guys. Okay, next item.
Okay.
Oh, no, one more.
So that was on first read. The next item is ordinance number 2020-29, an ordinance creating a no stopping or parking zone on Bell Street during the East Washington Street construction project and declaring an emergency.
Okay, Mrs. Evans.
Okay, this is legislation, because of the East Washington Street project, we will divert traffic over to Bell Street, and it'll start sometime around July 6th and could last through December or till the end of December. And so we want to make sure that delivery trucks, UPS, they can't stop on Bell Street. They have to find a place to stop and
Or
walk.
pull in the drive.
Or pull in the driveway. And so this is in the interest of keeping traffic flowing in the village.
And also allowing emergency vehicles.
Correct.
Because a good number of the emergency vehicle calls are to Hamlet, and that's one of the access routes to Hamlet.
That's correct.
And so we were quite concerned about
Right.
delivery trucks, the heavy traffic flow, backing up traffic, ability of school buses hopefully are running again, to get through Bell on this. And it was a recommendation of the police, fire, and street department that we do this.
Right, and we do need to do this on an emergency basis because it is supposed to start July 6th.
I have comments there before we.
Yeah, oh, yeah.
This is way more restrictive than what we discussed at the last meeting, because it says between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. Like, this is not like morning and afternoon, morning and evening. You're saying nobody can stop during working hours ever on Bell. And a lot of those driveways will not support a truck, or if you're getting a washer or dryer delivered, if you're moving into a house. How are we gonna manage that?
Well, for
half a year.
I don't know, Angie, it's gonna be an inconvenience for everybody, but, in my talking to police, fire, there was felt they needed to have this to get access. I mean, I know it's an inconvenience.
Well, it's just, I'm not sure. It's a long, when we talked last meeting, you were saying we'll have rush hour.
7 to 9.
Right,
3 to
that's,
6.
and then it seemed like, well, you can arrange, look, you have a window where you can make things happen to live there for half a year. It is the distance you're talking to between Philadelphia and Ridgewood is a full mile. So you're not gonna park at one end and roll a washer dryer down the street.
No, we were
So-
thinking.
And UPS is just gonna say again.
They're not gonna-
and,
Right,
Post office
Right.
is just gonna say, you can come pick your mail up at an office.
Right.
I have a question. It's a good point you brought up. I guess the reason for this is during the time when traffic is being detoured.
right.
Yes,
Is the detours only going to be happening during active construction hours, or is there going to be some permanent detours because the road is impassable?
well,
What I'm saying is, are cars going to be able to get around when the construction workers are done for the day?
I'll
Or is
refer to Kim on that. Kim, you know the answer, Rob? You know?
I can answer that. The blocks that are closed are still going to be closed in the evenings and only open to local traffic within that block. So the goal is to always have an eastbound lane open during each closed block, but that's only for local access within that block. So when they're done for the day, that should be open just for the people in that block, and it will not open to general traffic passing through.
Thank you.
so
Plus,
what
we're
kind of
gonna be
notice has
doing
been
the-
given to?
One at a time.
Plus, we're going to be doing the East Washington Street in segments. So it might be open Ridgewood to Cleveland, but further down it might be the opposite as we go through the
Yes,
project.
that's my understanding.
It's not a
That's
shut
what I
off the
would
whole
say.
mile.
That's correct. That's how I see it.
Hold on, Nancy, what were you gonna say?
Do the Bell Street residents know about this?
No.
Other than Angie?
Yeah, no, other than the mention last meeting, nobody knows about this. So this just seems, I mean, obviously, it's major road work for the whole area. It has to be done and everyone's gonna have to give a little, but I just want to make sure we're making it livable for people for 6 months of the year. If it's entirely during all the working hours, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. I'm not sure how, there's things that may come up that they need to do.
I mean, obviously, a moving van would have to be an exception.
Right, that's what I'm saying. There's gonna be exceptions. I understand saying, look, Amazon can't come like all the time, but I was led to believe there would be like a window that you'd have to work in. But now it's like, there's no window. So you're not gonna be able to say, hey, can you deliver this at 9 o'clock at night? And those drivers are not gonna support trucks.
I think the thinking of the emergency services was there's no window for need for an emergency.
Oh, no, I understand that.
And I originally said exactly.
You did, I know.
I'm not backtracking on that. I was thinking that 7 to 9 and 3 to 6 would be adequate. But in talking with them, they recommended basically an all-day closing. So, that's how the legislation got drafted. And, could certainly talk about it, but the detour is going to start in July 6th, which would be before our next meeting. And I think my biggest concern is we get into the late August period with the school buses and the school traffic. That's a heavy school route because any mom with a kid in middle school and elementary school is going to be traveling that back and forth multiple times a day.
And with parents are going to be traveling it even more if we are still in COVID situation, given the presentation that Bob gave.
And also with the existence of Hamlet and the frequency of emergency calls up there, that's why they're recommended. I mean, nobody likes this. I mean, I'm not suggesting this is a wonderful thing. I'm just trying to make sure that traffic flows in the safest manner for the longest period of time. And our streets are narrow. I mean, South Main Street's almost impassable with landscape trucks.
Well, we never have that. Like we very, very rarely have a landscape truck stop on Bell. It's almost.
Well, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying it's not just Bell Street that we have this problem.
Could I ask a question? Would it be, and the chief is in council chambers with us. Would it be possible to do this in July with just the rush hour restrictions and see how it goes? And if it becomes too onerous on emergency services, then look at going for a full day. I worry about what this is going to do to people who have to live there.
And from experience, most of these delivery services have basically in their employee handbook that you are in no circumstance to pull in a driveway because most of the accidents that happen come from them either backing in or backing out of driveways.
Although Amazon does back up because there's a lot of beeping in road space. That's another conversation.
I'm very concerned about the Bell Street residents not having any idea that this is coming and then all of a sudden hit them with it and not even have an opportunity to talk about it. It's a lot of people and it's a pretty, I think, pretty heavy impact.
Oh, it is. It's like a couple hundred people we're talking about in this stretch. And
this is a
couple hundred houses, so.
Impact.
It's a big group of people. So
there needs to be an educational piece for the whole community that we're not picking on anybody. We're just working through a messy construction.
All we're trying to do is provide a safe route. If you want to try a limited hours, I suppose we could do that.
Can we
let's get the police chief on this.
I'm sorry.
Well, I think one school of thought is what's the reality of getting FedEx, UPS, and Amazon to agree to our window of hours? They won't. They're not going to.
No, but it wouldn't be getting them to agree. It'd be getting the homeowner to know the only time you can have a delivery made is during this time. Because at least they'd have a window. They could talk to FedEx or Amazon and say, you can only come at this time. Or if Snow Brothers is delivering an appliance, you can come at this time. But you can't. At least you have something, because right now, if you tell them 7 a.m. to 7 p.m., you can't go to anybody and say, deliver it at 6 a.m. because they can't, or deliver it at 9 p.m. Those are hours that you're not going to make that happen.
And if you stop and talk to any of the drivers, you can physically tell them to put into their system that, like, they have the ability to say, like, loading dock is closed from these hours, like a business. So they can say,
That was part of what we were thinking administratively, we would contact UPS, FedEx, and say, listen, for the next 6 months, we're having road construction, we have no stopping on the street, because it's narrow, it's passable. We didn't think it would do any good, but we put it on record at least.
This is a silly question. Can any of this be done at night?
No.
The construction.
The construction?
Oh, the process of.
Oh, it was absolutely.
Is that right? I'm sure the residents wouldn't like it at night either.
jackhammer at 11.
For everybody, for everybody had your cell phone.
This project brought to you by Darren Wilder.
So listen, there's no good answers.
No, I know.
And I'm not, I love this stuff.
Just tells you what time it was.
Oh, I'm getting used to this eventually. There's no good answers. So if you want to try something and then if it doesn't work, try it. I'm not adverse to that. I went with what the recommendation of all the safety forces were, and this is what it was. The no stopping zone, as we went through.
How do you feel about doing it in the rush hour windows and then
I'm
coming
fine
back
with
if we have
I
to?
absolutely understand.
I just
that
don't know
this
what
has
to do.
happen. We have to do something, and I totally agree that Bell Street stopping will create a traffic problem. But we have a lot of residents there, and this might be too onerous unless we have to do it. I guess it would be great if we can try it and see if we have to do it. I don't want to start here unless this is,
I have a procedural question. We talked about this the last council meeting, and now we see it here in front of us tonight as an ordinance. Is there a reason this needs to be an ordinance, Mr. Law Director? Oh, we woke him up.
Yeah, you're mute. Oh.
You're muted. You're still muted. Christy, he might need to be unmuted.
No, my other Zoom meeting kept interfering.
You're having two?
Well, not yet, but give me the question again.
We talked about this in the last council meeting, and it's now in front of us as an ordinance. Does it need to be an ordinance?
Yes.
Okay, then answer that question. I like short.
I think it wouldn't be enforceable if it wasn't an ordinance.
The police can't order people not to stop without an ordinance. There's no other way to do it.
So what window do we want? If we're going to do a window and we're going to change it, I'm sorry, Chief.
I think if it's been recommended by the safety services, we should go with the 7 to 7 and maybe have the ability to call the police under special circumstances if a mover's moving in or something like that.
Well, they should, realistically, that should be happening.
Anytime, yeah.
Right, I would think so. Bell Street's forward.
Yeah.
For deliveries, etc., could they do that? Can we write that in, that they have the procedure that they can follow to allow stopping?
We're not gonna come out for every FedEx truck.
I don't, no, I'm thinking more about
If somebody-
appliances,
if somebody's-
furniture.
Yeah, so realistically speaking, all the time, in fact, the lieutenant and I rolled up on a big flatbed, that had to get a cart off of there to move stuff, and we had to get out and direct traffic. Those types of vehicles should already be calling us regardless of this.
Mhm.
So yeah, if there was something like that.
Is that already, so maybe we could publish that would override this, so they could, so even if there's no stopping in place from 7 to 7, if say Home Depot is delivering drywall to your house and it's gonna come off on a little, a little truck and be in front of your house for 20 minutes, they can call you and that overrides this, is what you're saying? It's now legal for them to do that? or no?
We'd have to put it in the ordinance, but we can do that.
Could we take the last part of section 1 where it says 7 a.m. through 7 p.m. daily, except with permission by the chief of police?
Or is that too?
I don't like it because it's still not, what we're gonna ask every delivery truck that comes down the street to call in advance.
Well, yeah, the chief already said we wouldn't go out for an Amazon truck. This would just be for like a moving van or.
Right, like, big delivery, right, exactly.
So what do you do about Amazon, FedEx?
Well, we thought that they would go into Carriage Stone or one of the the side streets there and walk.
I don't think that's realistic.
What if we looked at this where we have restrictions when there's absolutely no way you could do that on Bell Street, like 7 a.m. to 9,
Right.
when there's school activity.
Exactly.
And major traffic. And then we kind of see how it happens between 10 and 2. Again, at 2:30
When
to
the school
5.
buses start, right.
It's,
But the UPS and FedEx, they have their routes and they don't care when.
well, they're not gonna be there between 7 and 9 typically. That's what
They're
I
not,
said.
they're not, they're, I mean, they don't.
They're not out of the.
So where are we at? What
Is
is,
there a drop-off place where they could drop packages and people could pick them up?
Yeah, but it's a huge inconvenience every time you have to do that. Because your package is always gonna be a day late because they have to deliver it to your house. And then you've got to pick your location and then you got to go pick it up.
they probably have to work with like Falls Pack and Ship or something who they have relationships with, and I
Wait a
don't
minute.
do that.
Okay.
If you're talking about Amazon, they're gonna pull in your driveway. We're only talking about heavy loads. We're
Yeah,
concerned
right.
about people not being able to come into the drive.
With everything but the garbage trucks, which is.
Well, and the landscapers, you might have an issue with them,
And the garbage truck's gonna have an issue,
Well, they're gonna have,
for sure.
but they stop every 10 feet. They
Well,
can.
we're gonna work that out.
That's a pause.
Okay.
I've seen them stop.
Okay.
Okay, so where are we?
I
we
like
back
to
to-
restrict it by the most the worst hours. that
7
you
to
have
9, and then what? 3 to,
2:30 to 5, 2:30 to 4,
What time do school
When
buses
is the
start
school
running
bus?
here?
7.
well, I mean,
Yeah, they're
truthfully,
not-
they're not gonna run until mid-August, so I almost wonder if we should just make it from like 5 to 7 in the evening, and then we can revisit this in
Until
early
August.
August.
That obviously is fine with me, but we could also make it 3. We could also, the school buses start coming around 3, like, between, so, but
So do you wanna say 3 to 6? Is it
yeah, I
3
mean,
to
if
6
we
or
don't
3
want
to
to
7?
revisit it 3 to 7, at least it gives you a window, like Jim was saying, if it's a window, at least there's a window.
Tell me what it, 6 or
10,
7,
so a 10 to 2 open window is fine.
and
with
3 to
me.
7,
All right.
So,
and 3 to 7,
okay.
okay.
And anytime you do need to block a substantial
You can-
blockage, you must contact the police.
I like
But
that.
I want to make sure, I understand what you just said. So 7 to 9, 7 to 10, no deliveries. Then
No.
from 10 to 2, I
That's
thought you
what I
said the window's 10 to 2, I thought you just said.
That's what I
Oh,
thought.
you did? Oh.
Is that,
I had
I was
7
just
to
saying
9.
10 to 2 is an open window in the middle of the day, and then
So 7 to 10, no deliveries, and then from 2 to 7, no deliveries.
right.
Okay.
Madam President?
And then-
Yes, hold on. Mr. Jameson, go ahead.
Yes, just so you know, we are ordering signs that'll have the hours of the restriction on them. There'll be quite a few signs. So when we do get these printed up, we will have.
Okay, we'll go with the,
On the sign. So if we do change it,
Once we know.
we have to change all the signs, just so you're aware.
I was trying to be helpful.
So we can't do your 5 to 7.
It's fine.
Well, do you want to also put in a proviso that in cases of undue hardship,
Hold on, you guys, I can't have the sidebar, I can't hear him. Go ahead, Dale.
do you also want language that says in the case of like an undue hardship and approval from the chief that you can stop in the prohibited hours with prior approval?
Yes,
Yeah.
I would like to see that in there.
Yes.
So,
So we still need to pass this tonight.
Aaron, we had a question for Barbara. Christie.
Yes, all right.
Oh, I did not see that. Okay.
Christie, can you put that back up?
will East Orange, Mill, et cetera, become unauthorized detours?
They're public roads, so we cannot prevent people from driving on them,
I mean, and
right?
this is from Philomethean up, so
Right.
there's no way around that section of Bell anyway.
I mean,
Carriage Hill, maybe.
I think people will be.
Carriage Hill.
It's
Maybe
private.
Carriage Hill. I know.
Rob, what?
Carriage on the private drive as is Hamlet, so they won't be deterring through that, but Cleveland Street, Philomethean Street.
Yeah.
Public.
Mill Street, those people are gonna detour.
Of course, absolutely.
Down through there, but when you're working between Cleveland Street and the east end of the project, there's no detour, you gotta go Bell.
Okay. Mr.
Bell, you
James,
may have to Bell all the way up to Daisy Lane.
Mr. Jameson, you had a question?
No, the mayor covered most of it. I just wanted to mention that we're detouring traffic mainly that's, that would be on East Washington Street. So they're trying to go as close to East Washington as possible. There will be some cars that'll cut over, but it's not like they're going to gain anything by using Cleveland Street or some of those others because it's not completing the path of the normal traffic. You will get some cars that will, but I don't anticipate any major flows because of that.
So do we need to pass this today?
That's the question.
Yeah.
That's-
Do we?
I don't.
Well, you don't have,
No, it was on
you
the
don't have
side.
another meeting before you start the construction.
Who has a calendar? When's the next meeting?
July 13th would be
July
the
13th.
meeting.
All right, I suppose we could go 7 days of the construction and see how it went and take this up on the 13th as an emergency.
And
Is
just get-
council
get it
comfortable with
passed
that?
and everything, Yeah.
Yeah, that would be better than, I think, just trying to.
And just so you know, also, even if it's passed at the next meeting, there is a lead time to get the signs made.
Right.
So there's a good week or two before we can get the signs delivered.
I got a hard time passing something that I haven't seen physically written.
Yeah, I don't like that either.
Okay, I'm feeling a lot of concurrence with that. So we're gonna leave this on readings. Mr. Markowitz, can you please edit section 1 to read in the last line from the hours of 7 to 10 a.m., 3 to 7 p.m. unless undue hardship and with permission from the police chief. But in
Got it.
plain words, in that last section, please. Are you good?
Okay.
Do you have notes
Yep.
on that? Okay.
I do.
And
And
then we need to make an effort to get the word out to the residents so they don't feel like this was done behind their backs.
No, I
They
will.
have a chance.
Okay.
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 What I was going to suggest to Rob is,
Clearly.
since it's pretty clear what council wants to do on the hours, they could start ordering the signs before that next meeting.
Okay.
Could we just, so it's abundantly clear, go over the orders or hours, so there's no mistakes in signs, because there's an expense if we have to redo them.
Yeah, it's 7 to 10 a.m.
7 to 10 a.m., Ron,
Yes, I got it.
and 3 to 7 p.m.
3 to 7 p.m. Okay.
Okay. Mr. Markowitz, is that it?
It is.
Okay. And council committee reports, administration and compensation. Karen.
Oh, sorry, no report.
Arts commission.
We have not met, but we're trying to get a Zoom meeting together of all the different art organizations so that we can get some updates about how they're managing the COVID-19 shift.
Mr. Rocky,
You want to say anything?
Board of Zoning Appeals, I'm sorry.
No
I
report.
switched my.
Our next meeting is, well, we're reviewing this for the 25th. That's publicly, and the next meeting is not in the calendar, unfortunately.
That's okay.
Sorry.
Cemetery commission, the columbarium footer has been poured. We have a new columbarium that's going to be going in at what is called the Fireman's Circle. It's a circle down at the southern end. And there's been some work to realign the fireman's stone to a more prominent location. And the firemen have been involved in that. So communications.
We're gonna have a meeting next Tuesday, the 30th at 5 p.m.
Tuesday at 5 p.m. Facilities and services, Mrs. Rogoff.
No report.
Finance committee is myself. We are going to do the capital budget review. We had talked about doing that this week, but we're going to wait till August to do that. We'll break it into 2 pieces. We'll do the first meeting and the second meeting in August. We'll do a preview. And then once we have full numbers from the tax filings that'll be due in July, we'll be able to work through what we can do. And then our June finance meeting will be on Tuesday, June 30th at 8 a.m. Parking Commission.
No report?
Parks Commission, Mrs. Rogoff.
No report.
Planning and Zoning Commission, Mrs. Rogoff.
Meeting next July 20th, 7 o'clock, probably by Zoom.
Okay. Safety Committee, Mr. Rocky.
So the police chief just completed a survey of the speed on Bell Street. And the average speed was 22.67 miles an hour, and the 85th percentile, so that pretty much the average maximum, was only 28.07 miles per hour. So we have much people abiding by the speed limit on those.
Fantastic. Go community.
I feel like that's improved.
It is.
It has improved. Excellent.
I do drive 15 miles an hour down there sometimes.
It's probably you.
Yeah, you're the one setting the average.
We'll do it between hours and 10.
Exactly.
Why that's improved.
Okay, Shade Tree Commission, Mrs. DiBernardo.
Shade Tree Commission submitted an activity report, which I will tell you, there are 45 trees planted this spring. They're looking at sites for trees planting in Greenbrier, and they will contact residents there to notify them and discuss the trees with them for planting next spring. The partial tree inventory and the arbor scope data entry has been postponed indefinitely due to the COVID-19 crisis and the effect on village revenues. They're looking at some issues with some trees locally, and they've decided that since the majority of the commission are all over age 60 and a few of them have underlying medical conditions, they will not hold any in-person public meetings until it's deemed medically safe, and they will submit instead activity reports.
Fantastic.
There we go.
Streets and sidewalks, Mrs. Evans.
Just tonight's legislation.
Thank you. Utilities Committee, Mr. Newell.
Just tonight's legislation.
Love it. Okay. Report of the Chief Administrative Officer, Mr. Jameson.
Thank you, Madam President. You might note that our Stairway to the Falls lower deck reconstruction project is about 3/4 complete. The new decking material and the railings look fantastic. If you get a chance, take a look as it's nearing completion, and we'll let you know once it's open to the public. Also, our traffic line striping throughout the village. You see some of the small line work has already started, but the main line work and the bulk of it will begin on Monday, July 6th. There was a little delay this year due to some of the restrictions from COVID-19, as well as the downtown patching that we were doing. We did a lot more extensive patching in the spring before the stores reopened. So that will be underway soon. And that's my report.
Awesome. Thank you. Report of the engineer, Mr. Lannon.
Good evening, thank you. Just a couple things. There has been movement at the state on a capital funding bill, which will put us back in the running for OPWC funds for the wastewater plant. We had a couple of grants pending. But in either case, we started bidding on the wastewater plant phase 1. So we should have bids in about a month, which is also good news because the EPA loan rates just dropped again for the month of July to, I think, under 0.5%. So it's a little bit ridiculous. Like the mayor says, it's basically 20 years, same as cash. And then the contractor started televising sewers on Washington Street last week. So they're looking through the tapes this week to start preparation to make the actual sewer liner. And that installation will start in the next 2 weeks. And then they'll also get into starting some open cut repairs on the water services and sanitary laterals in the next couple weeks.
Okay.
So that's all I have. I'm open for questions.
Any questions today for Mr. Lannon?
Nope.
No. Okay. Thank you very much. Report of the police chief. I did want to thank you last week, but the fire alarms did not allow me to. I wanted to thank you and Lieutenant Whitescop and the rest of the Chagrin Falls Police Department and Valley Enforcement for all the amazing work that you did during the 2 protests we had in June. I thought that you were the best of what community policing is. You provided a safe atmosphere for people to express their First Amendment rights, and you ensured that their protest was peaceful. You helped connect them with local experts like Reverend Morris Eason in de-escalation and sort of facilitating these types of events. And I think you were outstanding and should be commended. Thank you. Commended for everything that went into that. I appreciate that.
Appreciate it. I agree.
I agree.
I agree. Yeah, agree.
And then the report, Mr. Finley, are you still on or did your iPad die? Mr. Finley sent me a text message saying his iPad was.
I'm here.
Is he there?
Yeah.
Mr. Finley, report to the fire marshal.
Yeah, Amber did all right. Well, kudos.
Amber did all right.
Amber did.
I'm just kidding. That was the chief's report. He said Amber and Jason did a great job during the marches, and thanks for keeping us in the loop there. And we were all in the station up staff, but luckily we didn't need to be used for anything. And thank you for heeding the fire alarm eventually and getting out of the building. But it was I don't know if you're aware, but a police officer knocked the smoke alarm off. Apologetic. That is the only report I have.
Thank you, Mr. Finley.
Yes, ma'am.
Do we have any members of the public who would wish to speak to any matter? Christy, can we, do we have any?
Yes, I want to offer Wendy Davis an opportunity to speak if she'd like. She's submitted a few comments and questions through the group chat throughout the meeting. So I'm going to offer Wendy to unmute if she'd like to address her questions.
I don't have the chat open, so.
Hi.
Hello.
I had just a couple of questions as far as, is there a published plan for the closures and detours from the contractor?
There will be a plan. We're working on the details of that right now. A
And a
schedule was
calendar.
posted already, showing the different blocks and when the work will be done in each block.
So that's online?
I believe so.
Okay.
And we'll make sure that the full detour plan's on our website as well.
Okay. And then who's the contractor again?
SCT Construction.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for joining us. Do we have anyone else who has raised their hand through the Zoom or has asked questions in the chat we need to answer?
If you'll give me a moment to allow people to raise their hand, I will bounce over to our YouTube channel to see if anyone has submitted comments.
There is a question from Barbara Christian.
Did you read it?
I believe that was addressed during the meeting, but go ahead, Dale. You can
It
confirm.
says, will East Orange Mill Cleveland become an unauthorized detour?
We did that one. We answered that one.
Okay.
I would just like to share with council that there was a comment from the public at one point, just reminding you to speak in turn and slow your speaking down so that the Zoom audience has a better chance to hear your words clearly.
Thank you. Anything else from the public? Okay. Okay. Miscellaneous. Do we have any miscellaneous items from council? No. Okay. Village Council does need to have an executive session. So at this time, I am going to make a motion. I move to go into executive session with all members of council, the mayor, the law director, the chief of police, and Frank Saponsic to discuss imminent litigation, legal claims with the law director, discipline of a public employee, and consider the investigation of charges against a public employee.
Second.
Motion by Gerb, second by DiBernardo. Roll call, please.
DiBernardo,
Aye.
Evans,
Aye.
Rube,
Aye.
Newell,
Aye.
Rocky,
Aye.
Rogoff,
Aye.
Weigel.
Aye.
Okay, following executive session, Village Council will convene and no action will be taken. And the rest of the administration can enjoy their evenings.
Goodbye.
I'm going to leave this meeting and open up the other meeting, and you should be able to see me. If not, I'll reconnect.
Let's turn the camera off.
It should work.
Yeah, well, we'll give, so we're still
The room camera.
on here. So we're gonna just hang out for 1 second as we.
Yeah, Christy should be able to coordinate with me, but I'll hang on for a second.
That needs to be turned off too.
You gotta bring a whoopee cushion.
Chris is coming back.
Well, yeah, but could you turn it off now?
Yeah, no.
People are talking.
Yeah, no.
They're all gonna come to your office.
Well, I think we have.
Can't do my.
I understand the problem. I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it is a problem. It's just trying to figure out the livable solution.
Still there.
Cool, we're still here.
Okay, we're good.
Okay,
I'm here.
Gail, can you hear us?
I can.
Okay, it is 9:50. We're coming, I motion to return to our council meeting.
Second.
Motion by Group, second by Newell. Do I need to call the roll? I'm gonna do that. This is not in alphabetical order. I apologize.
Just go around the room.
Mr. Newell,
Aye.
Mrs. Evans,
Aye.
Mr. Wyville,
Aye.
Ms. DiBernardo,
Aye.
Mrs. Rogoff,
Aye.
Mr. Rocky,
Aye.
and myself, Mrs. Group. Aye. It is 9:51 and we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
See you guys on 25th.